Welcome to Play Pause Turn. In this podcast, we discuss all things to do with TV, films, games, literature, and today, technology. We give our thoughts on the media we've been enjoying, old or new, and comment on anything topical. And as you may have heard from my intro here, we're going to go slightly off our usual tack today. And I'm joined by Alex today. It's just me and Alex. Hello, Alex.
Hey, how you doing?
Very well, thank you. Alex, quick question to you. When's the last time you smashed your iPhone?
I've not smashed my iPhone, luckily.
Ever?
Maybe iPhone 4 days. I might have had a screen break, but that's so far along, I barely remember it.
So you're good to your gadgets. I am as well. I smashed my iPhone 12 Pro today.
Oh,
Ironically, I closed it in a car door, and so it's not a very pretty sight at the moment. So it's a bit annoying because, well, September's looming, and I was kind of holding back for the 14, which may or may not come out in September. I'm hearing from sources that the supply chain may cause problems with that. It may be October, November, or even December before the new iPhone comes out.
Yeah, I think it'll be.
However, I've stumped up. Yeah, it will be, won't it?
Yeah.
I've stumped up for a new Alpine Green 13 Pro.
Lovely.
Which is nice, a bit of upgrade and a better camera, but I want to make sure I can take pictures for summer holidays and things, so I've been forced to upgrade. We are slaves to our devices, whether they're iPhones or not these days. I've realised this without the phone today, how much we actually use the devices. And our focus for today's podcast is these devices, because we're going to follow up the Worldwide Developers Conference presentation from Apple by going through a few of the points that that have been released, or the information that's been released to us, and giving our thoughts. Now, let's just set the background here. I think I come under the umbrella of Apple fanboy. Myself and Bobby are big Apple fans. We are completely inured into the Apple ecosystem. The walls are high around us. But Alex,
how many devices have you got? How many Apple devices?
What, running right now?
Yeah, let's go with
in use.
In the room, yeah.
Well, I have a very, very mangled, which is still working, but it's kind of like a sort of instrument of torture, mangled iPhone 12 Pro. I have an iPad Pro 2020 pre-M1. I have an M1 Mac desktop, which I'm recording on. I have running and working, and I'm glad now because I can actually use it since my iPhone's balked. I have two iPod Classics, a 3G, which I've recently rebuilt and put new battery in, and a 5G video iPod, which surprisingly, coupled with a good set of headphones and a wired connection, the sound quality is so much better than an iPhone on Bluetooth headphones.
Yes, yeah.
I've noticed. Even an old codger like me that has terrible hearing.
Mm-hmm.
I have an Apple TV 4K, first gen 4K. I have an Apple Watch Series 6.
Okay, I mean that's still quite a lot.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not criticising because
I have two HomePods.
Yeah.
Stereo pair of HomePods.
Good.
Yes, there's a lot of stuff here.
I could say that the most popular manufacturer that I have in this room at the moment is Samsung, and I've got 4 devices.
Who make all the screens for Apple, don't they?
They do, yeah. They make the lovely screens.
Yeah.
But yeah, even so, that feels a little excessive. Maybe I should back off a bit on Samsung. Anyway.
It does make you think about how you use devices when you don't have one.
It does.
And so absence and so on. So let's what we're going to do. We're going to focus on a few things from the WWDC keynote. I thought it was highly amusing, and a few other people have mirrored this thought of shipping a whole bunch of journalists from around the world to Apple Park and plonking them outside the actual ring in front of a video to watch the keynote, which wasn't live. When they could have just sat in their rooms and watched it like we did. So, I mean, I understand they got to tour around the Cafe Max, and they got a look in the developers area, which is very nice.
They did some hardware
they got
hands-on, didn't they?
Yeah, they've got to touch the new hardware. Yeah. And I would never say no to getting there, but it just seems a bit strange to fly over there all that way and then watch a screen. But I think in terms of the format of the keynote, I don't think it's going to change in the future. I think that's going to be the new going forward. because I think Apple are in more control when they can record their keynotes.
Yes, it's highly produced now, isn't it?
Yeah, and I actually prefer this format myself. For people at home, it's a better format. I quite like all the flying around and the highly polished presentation. And I'm a very, very big fan of Craig Federighi, who followed on from Tim Cook, who obviously introduced the keynote. Craig Federighi is like the dad you wish or the uncle you wish you had. He's in his sort of sexy transitions as he sort of jogs in this sort of fat wind turbine from room to room. In slow motion. So he actually started off the ball rolling here with iOS 16, and he sort of sank into the floor of the Steve Jobs presentation centre in this sort of CGI floating platform. And I think they're Apple's biggest product in the world is the iPhone, so they're going to lead with the iPhone straight away.
Yeah.
And so iOS 16, which is obviously the iPhone's operating system, was announced. And straight away, they have picked up on the general mood of users, that these are not the pro users, just the general users, about what people want, and that is the new lock screen. There was a big reaction, a big brouhaha, a happy reaction when Apple updated their software where you could actually personalise your home screens. And my iPhone is actually a black and white sort of brutalist design. I've ditched all the colour and gone black and white with it and made my own Siri shortcut links for every app icon. So they did the right thing by choosing to update the lock screen. Now, I'm not an Android user. Android users have had, you can help me out here a bit, Alex, persistent sort of interactive features on their lock screens for a while, haven't they?
Oh, years and years. Yeah, we've had. Yeah. I think most manufacturers do it slightly differently. Samsung's probably one of the most customizable, but they are one of the most customizable everything, pretty much. But yeah, so most of them have had some functionality. It's never been a massive part of it, but I think they've always had more flexibility than Apple have. So Apple giving users some flexibility is like a really big step. So you understand why everyone was happy with that.
Well, but I can just imagine all the Android viewers going, "Whoa, this is ridiculous! This is like an old feature that's suddenly appearing. Why they're so excited?" But as an Apple user, I mean, I use a lock screen a lot because where I work, phones we have to get them out to authenticate the services that we use. But I'm not a big fan of having it out and about in class. With children around, so I tend to just use it like a clock, really. Yeah. But having useful info on the lock screen, and there's a reason why it's useful, which we'll go into. But my first impression. So let's just describe it. So the lock screen, you can change the colours. You've got sort of filters, a bit like Instagram filters. You can change the fonts, and you've actually installed iOS 16 into one of your test phones, haven't you? Your work phones.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've got it installed at the moment, and it's quite fun. Widgets are fun. There's this nice sort of parallax effect if you, also depth effect if you have a particular picture that has like a foreground and a background, it will punch that out, and then you can do things with that. But it is still pretty tame. It's it'll let you move an item around slightly, but it won't let you completely redo it. Yeah, it's very simple. But honestly, that's what they've done is really well executed. That's what Apple do well. So
they do. I mean, they are very polished and slick, and they're still like their minimalist style, don't they?
Yeah, I like the idea of multiple lock screens for different. So that's really sensible. Like that makes a lot of sense. You're in.
That's linked to focus mode, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. You can
the first time I saw this, Alex, just want to interrupt because I think this will help our conversation. As an Apple Watch user, basically they've taken all the features the Apple Watch faces and put them into the lock screen.
Yes,
that's how I felt when I first watched this.
Yes.
So you're not familiar? Have you ever used an Apple Watch?
I don't have an Apple Watch, no, because I'm not an Apple user, unfortunately.
But so this is exactly when I when I saw this, that my first thoughts were Apple Watch design on the front of the phone and the same functionality completely.
Yes.
So I don't think these are widgets; these are more like complications.
That's right. And the widgets. Well, sorry, I keep calling them widgets, but yeah, they are very much like that. They aren't. You can choose from a list, but you can't do anything else with them.
I mean, Apple have always said that they are glanceable rather than
yes,
interactable.
that's right.
Which is the same on the. I mean, the Apple Watch has click-throughs on the complications to useful tools, but you can glance at data that does update now and then as well. I have a really good complication that shows the battery level of my watch and my phone at the same time, which is quite cool.
Nice.
Now, I'm a big fan of all the colours and fonts, especially the fonts of the digits, the clock.
Yes.
But what I did notice was the style of the fonts reminded me a little bit of the style of the watch face fonts when my Apple Watch has gone to always on mode.
Oh, I see.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when you rest your wrist, the screen dims and you get the 4 hertz resolution screen, which is just flickering every sort of 4 seconds. And I am imagining now that this is Apple's first steps. They're preparing the software for an always on screen.
So that makes sense.
Next iPhone.
And it also we'll come on to this a bit, but it does feel like things that work in one part of Apple, they're moving to other parts of Apple, of the ecosphere. So they're kind of making it work everywhere. I mean, the latest iPhones can support that. They can support always on at a low number of hertz, and that would do the job. So yeah, no, it's a good shout. And again, why would you bother if it was just the time? Well, you might not, but now that the time's a bit more configurable, now that you've got those complications, maybe this rolls out for iOS 17 or in the new iPhone that comes along. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, coupled with the lock screen, and the feature that I think is my favourite really is what they call the live activities. So your notifications in iOS 16 are going to roll up from the bottom of the screen. And Apple's story, I always have a story about this, is they don't want people's... Because when a notification comes in normally on an iPhone, it blocks the top of your screen.
Yeah.
And it hides certain things. So they're trying to kind of tidy up your visuals and have your notifications in a useful area that's not blocking something else. And I like the idea of them rolling up to the bottom of the screen. But what I really like is these live activities where... I'm just trying to think where I get the most notifications from. When I go out the front door of my house, I get loads of Ring notifications.
Right.
I have a Ring doorbell, and they pop up. Now, I would like to have, and I'm sure it'll come eventually, here's an example. These live notifications are a square that appears with info that updates. Mm-hmm. And, it's brilliant for things like sports results. I think the examples they gave in the presentation were Uber and Nike, but also the now playing live activity would be really good for when music plays.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it working for Lyft. Would work really well, and those kind of things would be great. So no, I think honestly, this is a really good improvement because it's that continual ping that frustrates people. So I think being able to do to kind of change that and just keep it up to date will be really nice. And
I mean, the most recent update to, I think it's 15.5 on the current devices, gives you like these notification summaries, which I think was the iteration towards these live activities. I like the idea of focus filters, so you can filter out your lock screens. So they're extending the focus. So I don't use focus very much. I tend to use it mostly when I'm going to the cinema and when recording podcasts. So I think that is quite useful. However, I'm liking the idea of filtering actual apps, and you're going to have like a more sort of global filtering system. Example I'm going to work, so it will filter personal messages out. It will only show me the apps on my screen that are useful for work. Mm-hmm. When I come back from work, it can be location based, or you can tap the screen. Then my work emails disappear, my personal apps appear on the screen. I'm allowing phone calls from family and friends, and I think even the email, I think will be filtered as well, and a calendar, which is really clever. Is there anything similar to that in the Android environment?
Not massively. There is a focus mode,
but
it's called all or nothing. It doesn't get to this sort of granular nature. There's also some apps, some phones have bedtime mode, which does something similar and links to the screen and stuff. But mainly they're just like a nice form of do not disturb. They don't do much else. So this is where they kind of Apple have really thought about it and said, actually it'd be really helpful if we tie focus to something and give it a purpose. And I think that's very clever. It kind of adds depth to it and adds to what's working, rather than just like adding lots of stuff and then seeing what sticks.
Yeah, there's in every update there is a lot of things that I never really use. I'd like to think I'm a pro user, but I'm just too busy these days.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have those options and those features. Now, for the normal user, the next reveal I thought was excellent, and I've highlighted this in my big highlighter pen because we've wanted this for a long time. Again, each time we go through this, it'd be nice to hear from you, Alex, if Sans have already had this. It gives me context. Messages. So you can now edit your set of messages. You can undo send, and you can mark threads as unread. The last one's really useful. I mean, marking threads as unread, I can come back and look at them later on. But I imagine they will set these up so they don't send for 15 minutes, and they give you a little window to go back and edit or unsend them.
So no. So yeah. So there's a couple of things. So leaving something as unread, I've got no idea why that was never included in messages. That seems like an obvious one. Everything has it, so I don't know why that's an issue.
It's like Apple being proud of copy and paste on the first iPhone when they didn't have it, then they added it, isn't it, really?
Well, I think Apple likes to think different. It likes to do things its own way, and this was a simple case where they're like, no, you're done with it. I'm not going to give you the option because I've told you that you're done with it now. And I think like
the headphone jack,
exactly. So that was this is the brave move, that kind of thing. So I don't that's not very impressive, but the thing with undoing and deleting messages, it feels like what they've done is they've taken what you can do in something like Messenger or Viber, and they've basically just gone, well, we quite like that. Can we create can we do that in iMessage? And of course the answer in iMessage is you can do what you like because it's iMessage. They can write the book. They don't have to worry about it. So I'm pleased that they've done that. My issue is with iMessage itself and the fact
the cross-platform
and the fact that it just doesn't support. The obvious thing is it should support RCS, which is the open standard for that kind of communication, so that emojis and stuff would show the same in other things, but they just don't want to do that, so they won't do it. So anyway, so that's my bugbear. These are nice incremental improvements.
Did this whole cross-platform message issue come up in an anti-competitive law case recently? Yeah,
but they can't.
I'm sure it did.
The problem is it's much more of an issue in the US than it is in any other country. Yeah. And Apple has the case of saying we allow other messengers. You can use whatever messenger you like. Yeah. But the problem is they know that the bulk of people just use the default. They're building into the default. They're just not doing it in an open way. But there's no rules to say they have to. So, no, I honestly, it's the nice incremental improvements. Deleting a message sounds like a real game changer if you live in the Apple world and you're on an iMessage chat. So for that, that's brilliant. I just wish they'd think about other platforms.
So what we have we haven't mentioned so far is they are releasing a lot of APIs to work with the software. So third-party apps will be able to link to the API for live activities. Not for messages, obviously, as we've just been talking about.
Well, don't forget these are app. So these are app APIs, not open things. So if you build it in an iOS app, you'll be able to reference these things. Actually, although it's not particularly impressive, doing that's actually really good because not all of the other platforms do that or do it well. Sure. So I think this is the thing that confuses me with Apple. Sometimes they really do things for the developer in a really good way, and you think, great,
as long as they're developers for the iPhone.
So long as they're developing for the iPhone, and that's my only bugbear. But honestly, the fact that these are open and they got the, Apple developers like integrating these Apple things, they're really good improvements, and it's nice to do that. The other thing, I don't know if it's next on your list, is dictation. We need to cover that.
We'll cover that, yes. built into messages now will be SharePlay, and I quite like that. You don't have to go to FaceTime. I like the fact that you can actually watch a TV program together and just message each other, which generally people do because you don't often want to sit and watch your mate's face whilst watching another face on TV, if that makes sense. So I like that. I like the fact you can share links directly from FaceTime into Message and so on. But yes, dictation. Let's move on. Dictation, and the developer here was Robbie Walker. And I love, and I've seen a few developers on Twitter with the installed version of iOS 16 playing around with this. I like the new dictation very much. What are your thoughts on this?
I think it's great. I think it's really good. So the thing is, for a long time, Google has had the best sort of detection, but in terms of its voice detection and understanding, it's always been really, really top notch. And Apple has slowly chipped away. Its Series sort of initially it was okay, but not great, and then it's just progressively got better and better. And I think this is just showing that they really are up to the level of Google now in terms of their voice recognition.
I mean, the fact that keyboard stays open whilst dictating is such a game changer.
Yeah, really nice as well, isn't it? Because it just makes it so much easier to change
through the different words and tools. And I'm having to always say, "How are you, Alex?" ? When I'm dictating, and it doesn't always work. Sometimes it actually says the word, it types out the word ? But now punctuation is automatically added, and I presume that's built up from not only a dictionary but perhaps some machine learning too. They will feed it a certain amount of text and punctuation, and it can kind of suggest it for you.
Yes,
that's really cool. That's really useful for accessibility as well, and I would imagine, and we're going to come to this later on with one of the other exciting updates. This is going to also be used for hands-free.
Yeah, I'd assume so.
Hint for later on.
Yeah.
As the dictation gets better and hands-free gets better, we'll see it being used in other scenarios. But let's move on. So, as part of my job, I use live text a lot. It's one of my favourite updates to the iPhone. Do you have live text on
explain
Android devices?
What live text is.
Okay, so live text, you can take a photograph or hold up your camera to some printed text in the real world, whether it's a poster or someone's screen or text, from a book or a page, and the iPhone will recognise that text, and you can select it, copy it, and then paste that into a word processing document.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, at school we've had a member of staff transcribing all the old hymn books into PowerPoints to play in the hall when the children are singing. In the past they've had to read it out and copy it. Now they can literally just hang their phone over the page, copy it, and paste it straight into a PowerPoint.
Yeah.
So it's really good in teaching, really, really good for me.
Good.
But also, the feature allows you, if you're up near, if you're looking at a business card or an advert on someone's wall with a phone number, you can tap on the phone number, it'll ring from your phone directly from the picture.
Great.
Which is really cool.
Yeah, that's really nice.
What they've now added is live text in video.
That's clever.
So I think it's the same technology as photograph, because the processors are getting better and better in the phones. They're able to actually process each frame of a video, which is really clever. You have to pause the video and interact. You can't do it live. If that makes sense.
Oh, I see. Okay, so it kind of is.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's just a natural progression rather than a major upgrade. But it never occurred to us before. But now you can do it in video as well. But it means you can take, you can be watching a video that you've recorded, or a video for, I guess, I'm not sure if it'll work within your Netflix and Apple TV apps. But if someone's on the screen in a film and you want to highlight some of the text or quote or reference, I don't know.
That's good.
The same thing goes for live text in the Translate app as well, which I'm pretty sure Google will be doing for a while.
Yeah. So Google have had Live Translate for quite a while. They also have had Google Lens, but Google Lens was the entire page, and it just worked out what it was. My device has essentially, it's called Smart Lens, and it gives you, can't see it, but it's really highlighted all of the text areas, and I can just copy and paste them, which is great. And
which is like live text.
Yeah, exactly. Basically. Which is just like live text. And then the other thing is captioning is one of those. Live captions also very helpful if you have problems hearing, for example.
Yeah.
So they're all combining. They're all and you can see that Apple's actually.
Well, it's a need, isn't it?
It is.
It's a need that we all have.
And Apple's kind of servicing that as well, which is really good. So it's not just exclusively a Google thing. This is happening an Apple just to the same level, which is great.
And again, I'm gonna just talk about. It was never mentioned in the keynote, but a lot of these features would be very, very useful in some sort of head-mounted AR object as well, wouldn't it?
Yes, they would. That has not been announced.
Maybe later. No, but there's some speculation about that. So, again, there's a live text API for developers, which can be used within this, which is very clever. Now, there was a wow moment here for me. One of my favourite moments, again, from the presentation, and that was to do with dogs. So they demonstrated how the phone can recognise elements of images. In this case, it was a picture of someone's dog on the beach. You can lift just the picture of the dog, so the outline of the dog gets cropped from the picture, and you can drag it out of picture and into things like messaging and stickers, and I imagine other apps like art drawing apps. Now, again, we talked about this before. There are similar features in the Android phones. I know the Oppo. I saw an advert for the Oppo in the cinema recently where you can circle people who are photobombing you and they vanish.
And they delete them.
The background.
Yeah, I think
it's a sort of a cloning tool.
Yeah, I mean,
this reminds me of that, but a little bit clever where it's in reverse. You're essentially deleting the entire picture apart from the dogs.
Yeah,
isolating it. It becomes its own. I don't know, like a PNG file, and it gets dragged across to another app, and that's really clever.
I think this is where Apple shines, because what they do is we're working on the same features essentially, but what Apple's doing is it has the benefit of not looking just as a phone manufacturer or just as a camera app. They can bring it all together and say, no, I'm going to make that system wide, and this is how it's going to work. And it's that integration that Apple's really good at. So the fact that they went, no, that would be cool, and then that will work everywhere because that's the Apple way that we're going to do it now. We're going to make it work everywhere. That's really good and really impressive. And
that's an evolution from the original drag and drop
yes,
feature
of course,
they brought in
which they put in
reluctantly.
I will say.
Yeah.
They didn't. They really took their time on it, but the actual end solution.
By 2025, the whole system will be merged into one, I think. Anyway, but that's for a different podcast. Now, we're going to gloss over Wallet a bit because there was some nonsense about ID cards, but blah blah blah. America, bring it to the UK. I get a little bit miffed when I see these US only features, but I guess they have to start somewhere, and having US as a test bed is quite handy. But I am frustrated by the extra cool features that they have in America with their systems over there, like the ID cards and wallets.
It's the problem is it's one of those things where the penetration in the US is a little bit higher than it is in the UK. For Apple. And then the other thing is that they only need to talk to states. They don't have to do anything across to the government. Whereas the UK government basically won't talk to Apple on its own. They'll only talk to Apple if they can do exactly the same thing on Android. And of course, that's not what Apple does. So that's the problem. Whereas individual states don't mind that. They're like, fine, we'll go and talk to Samsung or whoever. That doesn't bother them. But yeah, so it is annoying that they have this in the US and not here. But my main
sorry, carry on.
Oh, my main concern is the same one, which is great. You want to send your hotel key to your other half who happens to have another device that isn't an Apple.
Oh, the key sharing is really good.
Yeah. So like key sharing again, very clever.
But you both have to have iPhones to do that, don't you?
I think you do. Yeah, it's not 100% clear, and the thing is,
well, they mentioned it.
They did say that it was
they're trying to make it an industry standard on the phones, but that's an intention rather than a feature that's going to happen. Does that make sense? Or we'd like it to be an industry standard on the phones.
There are industry standards though. This is one of the challenges. So what Apple's saying is we want you to use our industry standard, and maybe we will. Maybe we'll all end up on the same industry standard.
Well, they did that with HTML5, didn't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Flash.
Yeah, so that's
they have
that's
that power,
fine.
that weight behind them.
But sometimes it won't, like USB-C and Lightning. And another time, and that's it. But no, they're doing some really clever things. But I do think that we need to just kind of remember, like, what happens if I break my phone, which is a perfect use case that you've got. Which it sounds
Can't
like
get into my room now.
Yeah, it sounds like an edge case, but actually, and the nice thing about Apple, which I can guarantee, is that they'll have thought of that. And they'll have said, "Don't worry, it'll work on your watch or your iPad."
Yes,
or
exactly.
They will cover that. But it's just, it works so seamlessly when you're in the Apple world.
Well, it also implies that you've got to be drenched in Apple gear for it to work.
Yes, that's
with
right.
Enough redundancy.
Yes,
which is a shame. So again, another US feature, tap to pay, which I think is brilliant. We don't actually need the square. The square little device that you tap against.
Yeah, the card reader.
The card reader. That's what I'm trying to find. I went up to my local ice cream van. They had one. Brilliant. But for vendors, just being able to use your phone is brilliant.
It will come to the UK in time, but the law, the regulations for the US, for UK and Europe are a bit higher, and so in the US you can, you don't have to be registered to accept payments and all that kind of stuff. But
and in that vein as well, Apple Pay Later, which is basically going to kill Klarna if it comes over here, allowing you to split. And I think PayPal have been doing it as well, haven't they? So being able to split into 4 equal payments.
It's a hugely expanding area. It obviously that came partly from the fact that we've got rid of all the payday lenders, and also because credit is really cheap at the moment. And so that's why you have everyone trying to help you overspend. It's very lightly regulated as well at the moment, so that
will probably change.
That will probably change, because there's a lot that happens behind the scenes that isn't. I mean, I've used Klarna before, and then went to use it again and got rejected. And I was like, "But I'm already your customer," and they were like,
"Yeah, I've had exactly the same." And I've gone and thought. And they're not expensive things that we're requesting.
No, not at all.
Something on on Amazon or something, but I quite like that. I quite like that there's that kind of slightly more friction to stop you from going crazy.
So
personally, even if it is frustrating,
the challenge,
annoying.
The challenge that is buy now pay later lenders, the steps and are introduced after they've already got you. Which is the thing. So if you're a new customer, they'll let anyone in, whereas when you're an existing customer, things got harder, which seemed weird. But anyway, maybe we were just unlucky. So we'll move on.
So the only interesting thing about this Apple Pay Later is the 4 payments are not monthly; they're weekly.
Yes.
So for some people, I think that's very. I mean, I'm not sure.
It's every 2 weeks
in a pay. Is it? Yeah, it's not a monthly payment. It's every 2 weeks, which strikes me as being a bit strange, because most people get paid monthly. So why would you? Do you see what I'm saying?
So the way you do it,
there must be a reason behind it.
Yeah, it's the same reason that PayPal do it in that way. So they do it in Pay in 4 is what it is in PayPal. And the reason they do it is because it's traditionally more appealing to those that are on lower incomes or are paid, so they're paid weekly. So it's more likely to help them manage their budget. It also gives them a quicker indicator if they're likely to default, because if you don't pay like the second payment, then that means that you're likely they can get around to it quicker and say, hang on, well, your access to whatever it is stops and that kind of thing. So there are good reasons for it, and it's a hugely increasing area. And Apple is quietly just moving to basically become like MasterCard or Visa, where they can do these things and everyone just kind of lets them. So they've got a lot of capital behind them, so they can't they? I mean, they are. Absolutely.
When it comes to lending money,
they're not short. They're not short on money at all. No, exactly.
Short a few bob. They're
so big they can just do that, which is fascinating and slightly scary, but really really impressive when you see it working well. So good stuff.
Let's move away from money, and let's travel away from money and travel using maps, shall we? I like the map updates because it's usually one of the things that we can all see in all our devices. It looked to me like it's sort of turning into like a Fortnite game or a video game. The maps are becoming more. I mean, they're prettier and more details being added to them.
Yes.
But I quite like the fact they're still quite simple. They look a bit like the sort of 3D blocks you sometimes get in sort of sat-nav routing technology.
Yeah, like your old
or a
TomTom.
simple sort of iOS game.
Yeah.
Again, it's ridiculous. Multi-stop routing in Google Maps has been around for ages. It's one of the main reasons why I still use Google Maps on my iOS devices, because I need to be able to do stops for charging my electric car at various places on my journeys.
Now you can.
So the fact they brought, I always try and use Apple Maps because I want to try and. It's the integration, the seamless integration with everything else I've got, because it's great using the routing on my watch when I'm driving. I can just glance at my wrist and it taps me when I'm turning corners and so on. So I do want to use Apple Maps more, but the multi-stop routing has been kind of a pain not having that. So it's great they've had that in.
Yeah.
I like the look of the dark mode where all the houses have got glowing lights around them as if they're in the street lights.
It looks so
really
pretty.
Cool.
It looks absolutely gorgeous. It's the kind of thing where I just think, do you know what? I really would like to try that. And then, and you know, I have an iPhone. I could do a side by side and see how they compare.
Yeah, it's a good idea. There's going to be updates to MapKits, the MapKit for devs. I think they're improving how transit works. They're improving how look around in MapKit works, which is basically the Google Street View, but slightly more polished apparently. Generally speaking, only for sort of big cities.
Yes.
And I think it was nice to see London getting included in the update for this as well. So I'm looking forward to testing that at some point as well when I go up to London.
Yeah.
The sports updates, again, a lot of it was very much US based. We can watch, and I could if I wanted to, if I had the inclination to watch Friday Night Baseball on my Apple TV.
Okay.
I have been to a baseball match in America and loved it, so I could be tempted to watch that.
Bit of NFL or NHL might work.
I think they're bringing up more premium sports coverage to Apple TV Plus, so that's good. I'll get more of that myself. But I think again, it's quite US based, and we have to wait and see if that develops for the other countries. So one really, really, really big update, and again, I don't know if you have this in Android, is being able to share photographs with families. Because at the moment, whenever I go on a trip with friends or family, we set up a shared folder, we all add to it, and the quality of the pictures is downgraded slightly when you add them to the folders as well. So having a separate library of family sharing photographs is really good, and having restrictions for children, because I can see this scenario here at some point when family sharing starts coming in, of parents suddenly receiving inappropriate pictures as their kids forget which album they're adding their pictures to, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you can set restrictions up. I think that works both ways for the parents and for the children. And those restrictions can then be set up on other children's phones by tapping or bringing the phones together, which is really clever. Again, the shared photo library thing, I think, is one of the standout points or updates to this.
Yeah, they've really gone to town on it, and they've. The thing is, a lot of it is influenced from Google Photos, which does pretty much all of this. But it's useful that they've thought about this. And again, this is one of the benefits of taking your time, is that you can see other people trying it, see which you think works and which you don't, and then you pick and choose the bits from it. So I particularly liked that they added. No, this isn't specific to. Photos, but they added something called Safety Check. And I was really pleased about that, because what you end up doing is you end up sharing lots of stuff with your other half as a norm, because it's like, I need to do this and I need to see this and we might as well share this, but there's a point where that becomes a safety issue if things change. And what's nice is they've just made it simple, and they've just paid it.
You can cut your ties, can't you, basically?
It's one button, and it's just so simple to do that. And I think that's really clever, and I think they've done that really well.
I mean, that's obviously been set up in the kind of the whole uncomfortable scenario that Apple have had with AirTags recently, but also,
Yes.
if you can stop your location permissions, if you can review the access you set to other people, and then cut that if and when a relationship breaks down or a partner's being abusive, I think, in terms of personal safety, is there anything that compares to that on other phones at the moment?
So Google's got
There's apps for some.
Yeah,
Things like
Google's
that,
got some steps in place for that, and like it will regularly remind you when you're sharing location, and it'll also send you an email regularly to say, you're still sharing your photo album with these people. Are you, is that what you want? But it's just not as thoughtful as Apple. They've really thought about it and thought, well, it's not just to switch it off in case you forgot. There's a valid safety reason, and here's how we're going to address it. So, yeah, no, I'm really pleased with that.
Moving on, we have a new Home app. This has been, again, the Home app as it is currently is a crap show, really, and it's useful in terms of its integration, but the actual app itself is not great.
Yeah.
And I use that phrase in sort of the American sort of sideshow reference rather than a rude word, but it is. So Corey Wang introduced the new home ecosystem. They talked about Matter. We can come back to this again. This sort of cross-platform intention that Apple has, and Matter is one of the standards that a lot of the other groups are talking about. I wonder at what point, at which keynote, will Matter actually be in action rather than saying next year Matter, because they talked about it in the previous keynote.
Yes.
So by the next one, it's got to be in place. Otherwise, you start to think it's perhaps vaporware.
So Apple's only going to show it when they have physical hardware. Like they're only going to make it a big fanfare when they have
And they've got enough things
physical
going on.
hardware to sell.
Yeah.
And even if they're not doing it, they'll have an ecosystem of like chosen manufacturers who will be selling it.
Yeah.
And they're only interested in that.
People like Hue and people like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Philips.
So.
Yeah. It's again. I like the intention. I just wish they would follow on their promises, really. Because I use a lot. And you and I both have a lot of smart home stuff. And what would be nice is to have an Alexa device and a Samsung device, an Apple device, and whatever device you decide to choose, they all work together seamlessly.
So the problem is
there's a lot of sort of faffing about with barcodes and things at the moment, isn't there?
Yeah.
HomeKit and
I think
the rest.
the problem is that this is part of an ecosystem that they can control some of that, but they can't control all of it. Now, Apple is good at getting people aligned around its aims, so I do think that there is promise here. But the problem is you've got to think about what's the incentive for the smart home manufacturers, and for most of them, they've spent the last few years putting up walls between all of these things. So any progress is going to be slow. It'll be modest. It'll be a small range rather than end to end. Well, it will take its time.
In terms of business decisions, this week it's been announced that the HomePod Mini is now the world's best-selling speaker.
Right.
So if you're a hardware or an accessory manufacturer, you've got to look at bums on seats, haven't you? And the HomePod Mini is also a home hub, so you can actually control your devices using the HomePod Mini as a hub for your devices. So I'd be tempted to look into that. If I was a manufacturer. But again, they're probably all just at the moment biding their time and waiting, aren't they, seeing what comes out next. There's rumours of a new speaker. I think it's being designed a bit like a Sonos soundbar, but it might have HomePod stereo abilities for your films, but also maybe a screen on it and possibly a built-in, all the built-in Apple TV stuff. So you can use it as an Apple TV.
Oh, I see.
With a speaker.
So this is an Apple
I presume it'll have
product.
ARC 3 in it as well. Yeah.
Oh, right.
So imagine like a Sonos speaker with a screen with Apple TV built into it for streaming your content. Although Lord knows why every TV you can stream Apple TV now anyway, can't you?
That's right.
So the new Home app is brilliant, and the new design looks really good. One page is such a good idea because at the moment, if you've never used it, you have to flip between rooms, and it's kind of ungainly. You can access it again if you have a live activity or widget in the home screen, which is really useful. I use some third-party apps on my watch for controlling my lights in my house. So good. That's just really good.
Yeah.
And I think they've been listening to the developers and listening to the users about that. This next one is really interesting, and this is because it will get the journalists tongue wagging about what's happening next with Apple. But it is CarPlay.
Yeah.
I found this really interesting. So the next generation of CarPlay will spread your Apple CarPlay controls and screen dials and things right across the screen of your car and become your main console with your speed limits and your maps and your wing mirrors and everything else. So you're using CarPlay instead of your own instrument cluster. I have real mixed feelings about this. I just don't know how many manufacturers are going to allow Apple to take over their beautiful graphic. Look, like the Mercedes EQS that's come out with this massive screen. How would they feel about this?
So
it's an amazing idea, and I love the look of it. It was very sci-fi, and I'm pretty sure that this is the next step towards an Apple car. But how I can't see how you'd implement this with the manufacturers. You've got to have them on site.
So I think that the manufacturers actually asked them about this because they're thinking about it from their side as we have more screens now than we used to have. So why don't we allow you to put widgets and things like that in that cluster as well? Because they're making them quite large. Like the EQS is enormous space that they use, and even some of the other particularly electric, but even some of the new cars, it's going down to this 2-screen route where there's like.
The Ioniq 5, it reminded me of the dashboard of the Ioniq 5, actually.
That's right.
Hyundai electric car.
Yeah, so there's definitely, you can see that manufacturers are kind of forming around this. They're going less towards Tesla's big screen and very little else, or a little head-up display. They're going down the route of, no, actually, people are pretty much happier with two landscape screens, one for driving and one for entertainment. And so I think they probably did this together. So I do think they're going to get some interest. But then Apple does Apple's things their way. So I think the challenge is that probably the manufacturers probably didn't really know what they were asking and were like, well, can you put a widget or something? And Apple have basically gone and said, no, it's our way or nothing. And so I suspect that they'll have some people, I think it was Ford that they showed, that that will go, yeah, sure, we can't be dealing with this. You deal with that. But others won't.
It saves them. Yeah, I mean, in terms of, as you say, I mean, this is an interesting point of view. It saves a lot of car manufacturers having to have a team of developers to develop the dashboards. And let's be honest,
it costs a fortune.
It costs a fortune, and also a lot of them are pretty bad.
Yes.
I know I watched a review of the Ioniq 5, and they had not very nice thoughts about the dashboard, and it was a bit slow. Same with the ID Buzz, actually. Again, the instrument panel there was frowned upon a little bit.
The main problem is they're poorly. They don't have good specs, good processors running normally. They normally run Linux, and they just don't have enough oomph to do anything really well. So they're always like doomed to failure. And then if you lay on top of that the fact that building that for particularly an electric car, but even the most like premium cars, other cars. It's really expensive and time consuming, so they can't just do it and for one model of car and then stop. They have to do it for everything or nothing at all, and that's why CarPlay and Android Auto have been really good for them, because they get the connectivity they want without having to kind of deal with it, which is nice.
In the time of, you mentioned chips there, but in the time of problems getting snazzy chips for your cars, if you can just have a low-grade screen mirroring system with someone's phone doing all the work, which is always going to be a higher quality of chip in it anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, all skepticism aside, I did like the Apple-ness of those instrument panels. They were crisp, and you could personalize the cluster in front of you. I thought that was really almost a little bit like the lock screen kind of personalization again. And their whole kind of ethos is being mirrored here.
I think the best version I've seen of that is it's called Android Automotive, and it's available on the Polestar.
Oh yeah,
and
the Volvo
it is literally Android on the car rather than Android on your phone. But again, they've done the Tesla route where they've put a decent processor in it and it worked really well. So if this gives that experience in a well spec car, that's great.
Yeah.
Like I honestly, I think it'll, for iPhone users, I think it'll be really nice for them.
Okay, yeah. So that's iOS 16. There's a lot there, and because it is the most used of the it's a long one. So let's just scoot through Apple Watch because you're not a user of Apple. I don't want to dwell too much on this.
I don't use it.
There's some nice things. So let's just sort of summarise it. There were more faces. There were some actually very nice faces. I don't know whether they will work on my Series 6 because it's got a slightly smaller screen.
Right.
We'll wait and see. I presume it will kind of shrink to fit. But there were some very lovely faces. The Lunar face looked really nice, and that kind of new Metropolitan one looks really nice.
Yeah, I guess so.
And for Apple, it's getting the license to use the certain fonts and so on the faces.
Yeah, they do look nice faces for sure.
Yeah. Update to Apple Fitness, which I thought was really interesting. They're going to try and suck more people in by not needing to have a watch. You can now use Apple Fitness on your iPhone.
Okay, right.
Which I think it shows your fitness rings, but I think it also grabs data from your phone when you're moving. Although I would imagine it's not as accurate.
It's not that bad. You'd be impressed. You'd be surprised how.
Well, it's like the pedometers we used to have, isn't it? It's a certain amount of motion control. It's pretty good on most phones these days. Anyway, we looked at watch health, and I tried to write this word down 3 times: polysomnography. So they're looking at more sort of sleep stage data through their research app. The AFib history I thought was really interesting, really good. As I get older, this stuff gets more relevant to me. I'm looking forward at some point to your Apple Watch wrist strap being able to test your blood pressure. I've just invested in a new blood pressure monitor that works with the iPhone, and I thought, oh my god, I've got this blood pressure monitor but no iPhone now because I smashed it. So
okay, so yours doesn't do that.
What's that?
So yours doesn't do blood pressure. Oh, okay, fine. My watch does.
Do the Samsung ones do?
Yeah, it does.
Oh.
You have to calibrate.
How accurate is it?
Well, you have to calibrate it, and you have to do that every 2 or 3 months. And in reality, it's not massively accurate. Neither will the Apple Watch be. So it's more about trends.
It's just not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the form factor that's not perfect. You'd have to wear your Apple Watch on your upper arm, wouldn't you, basically?
Yeah, well also the thing is that your blood pressure varies quite a bit. So it's kind of it's also a bit of a battery hog, but it's I mean it's great that that's coming to the watches. Yeah. It's brilliant. You're walking around with all of these stats and then get that connected to your doctor.
Well, it's easy.
It's great
to transfer that information from the health app because they're built-in ways of sharing that to your doctor.
Brilliant.
I recently got a message from my doctor saying your blood pressure history is not good. Please send us more data.
Oh right, wow.
So
that's good.
I can send it to them via the health app. But so they're going to have better heart tracking. And I think they're waiting for FDA clearance for the AFib history.
Yes.
But they're pretty good at this, Apple, and they've got a good good history. I can't believe it's taken this long to have a first-party built-in medication tracking app. There you go. That's brilliant as well. I love the fact that it would look at drug-drug interaction as well, so you're not taking 2 different drugs that don't complement each other. That's clever.
It's almost like the people at Apple are getting older, needing stuff, and then instead of using, they look at the other apps and go, "That is rubbish. I'm going to build a better one than that." It is literally what they're doing,
isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's good. You can log which drugs to take. You can set reminders. You can scan the label of your pills with the camera, which is very clever. I imagine that's built into the live texts of software as well.
Yeah.
For me, I'd like to have a drug interaction alert where I'm not, because alcohol's a drug. So you don't take this pill whilst you're drinking.
That's right.
Little things like that, just
little reminders would be good.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on from the watch and the iPhone. Some very desirable objects were announced by old John Turnus. Is it John Turnus? His name?
Yeah.
It's the next generation of Apple Silicon.
Could we talk about one thing, which may be relevant, which is the OS X update.
So we can go.
We're jumping ahead. Let's go to. Well, let's talk about the silicon and then do that update.
Yeah, I think the way Apple presented it is they want to present the new devices.
Yeah.
And here's the software you're going to use on them.
Right. Gotcha.
The new M2 silicon, which is inevitable.
Yeah.
These were coming, and Johnny Struggi in his lovely room filled with testing gear, which I'm not sure ever gets used. It's just there for display.
It's all for the look.
Yes, I mean there are a lot of numbers here, and it is all about this sort of power and efficiency balance, this performance. You've got lots of numbers here: second generation 5 nanometer tech, 20 billion transistors, 100 gigabytes per second memory bandwidth, all this stuff that, frankly, most of us glaze over with. But it's the percentages that are interesting, and again, Apple's still pushing this performance higher and higher, 2 times faster than a 10-core PC. But it's the efficiency what I find really incredible, more than the power, because you can overclock anything, but it's how it's used. In a portable situation like a laptop, like the MacBooks, and if you're the sort of person that uses devices unplugged out and about, it's just so important that you can keep using them with great power. Great power comes with great responsibility. So I liked all the numbers, and I was impressed about this sort of 40% more efficient than the M1, and you can use 8K videos and ProRes video and all this lovely stuff that developers want. But initially, it's just I like the look of the laptops. The MacBook Air, which is the world's best-selling laptop according to Apple, looked lovely. I was a bit disappointed that they hadn't gone down the same route of colouring them like the M1 Max.
Oh, I see.
I just think although as nice as the new Midnight Black MacBook looks, and I would always buy a black one because it's been a long time since the black ones were available, I just feel they missed a trick here with the colours. And I know these are devices that are kind of geared towards the professionals and developers and less the prosumers and consumers, but I just wish they'd make a bright orange MacBook would be awesome.
Well, it wouldn't hurt, and it's for them.
No.
It would be so simple, because the thing that Apple has that a lot of other manufacturers don't have the benefit of is they've got a lot of scale. So they will sell a lot of volume because they don't have a huge range of different SKUs. They're all pretty much the same frame and the same chassis.
Yeah.
So for them, it's actually trivial. They just it's probably just a different team, and they just haven't thought about it that way. But
I would imagine the only thing that's blocking the update in colours and having a larger number of items to choose from is the supply chain. I think if we weren't post-pandemic, we'd probably see colours, but I just think at the moment Apple are trying to keep it as simple as possible so they can meet demand.
I think there is also a risk. Yeah, I do agree with that. I think there's also a risk for the laptops that if they look too consumer, then they might, because laptops, MacBooks are the standard for a lot of tech companies. And so I think if it looked too consumer and you got to choose what colour that you had your laptop of, I think some companies might just be like, no, you're having grey. This isn't a toy.
Purchases of them,
this isn't a toy. Come on, this is your work laptop. Get on with it. So maybe that's why. But
it seemed to work for the old clamshell Macs from many years ago.
It did.
Adorable.
But they were solely
the
consumer
thing,
facing. They never tried to. Whereas I think that's the funny bit, is that a lot of places have MacBooks as standard. I had them in a number of companies. So
I think they've gone for Starlight, Midnight, and then is it the original steel? Is that the graphite?
Yeah.
And then I think, was there a rose coloured one? I could be wrong.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was called, but there is definitely a rose gold. Yeah.
I mean, there's a new thin design. I like the new design. I was never a big fan of the wedge, so I like the fact that it's a bit more straight edged. Brilliant to include MagSafe charging. That's always been a fan favourite. High impedance audio jack, which is good.
That might suit you for as an audiophile, but
yeah,
so that might work.
Well, if you're a musician, that makes a big difference in terms of quality. Liquid retina display, which is 25% brighter, a billion colours. Camera, still not 4K, 1080p camera on it.
So they
I don't
had
know what Apple are doing.
They had
about
quite.
This. Why have they not gone 4K?
So the main problem that you have with is that the sensor needs to be very small on a laptop, and because it has to be so small, it's really hard to get good quality. And it's why a lot of webcams are rubbish. But the problem is that at the time there was never really any reason to have a decent webcam, because who was on a video call, it wasn't that big a deal. Whereas now video calls are more ubiquitous. Now it's also important, and then I think they got a bit of flack over their Apple display.
Yeah, and I think we can discuss that and the response Apple has made to that later on down the line when we talk about Mac OS.
Yeah.
Okay, so they've had to kind of jig the speakers and mic a little bit more in between the keyboard display because it's such a sort of thin, tightly packed device.
When you think about the size of the battery and the keyboard, and literally now because it's running, they needed it to run M1 and M2 processors, because it's literally a sliver. No, it's got no fans, and it's a sliver that sits at the top of the of it, and maybe a little bit to the side. But it doesn't. Gone are the times where your laptop had like a circuit board that covered the whole size of the laptop.
Yeah,
they're just not there anymore.
I mean, if you remember the cutaways that they did of the M1 Max, which is mostly empty space and speakers inside them,
exactly.
And there's more going on inside the XDR display in terms of computing than some of these M1 Max.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
It is.
And I wonder if that links to other devices in the future. But they've still got Touch ID. I found it a bit confusing that the MacBook Pro still got the touchscreen at the top.
I don't think so. It's the old form factor, and they just did. The only reason they did the spec back, the only reason they've done a spec bump is because it cost them nothing to do that, and also because I think they're not quite ready to have a Pro version of the at that size point. But I think you're going to see a redesign of the
Pro,
the old 12 inch. And it will be a Pro, as it were, and it might have an extra port or two.
Yeah, so lots of fun things going on there. The fact that it supports fast charge is really good. Apparently, it's going to charge to 50% in 30 minutes. That's really good.
Great.
Again, thinking of the use cases there and how they're going to be using these devices. I thought that the price hike was a little bit cynical because they normally maintain the prices, but I guess.
Everything's more expensive now.
Yeah.
But also for Apple, it is pretty trivial for them to bump the price and get away with it. Literally, all they've done is they've said, "Oh, we'll keep the old one for a bit," and everyone's like, "Oh, all right."
Available, isn't it?
Yeah, and
no
it's
one's going to buy those ones.
No,
they will, but
The thing is, I just can't see the reason for buying it, because the only reason it's there is to make the 1200 seem better, and that's its purpose.
Well, I would imagine, again, a lot of enterprise solutions may still buy a bulk M1 in the meantime.
Oh, sure, they'll sell plenty of people who want the cheapest one, but the purpose of that product, that tier is to make the middle one look good, so that you then go for the middle one.
So the MacBook Air will get 18 hours video playback, and the Pro 20 hours. So let's get into the guts of these machines and go to macOS Ventura, which is the Apple's continuation of naming after places in California.
Oh, I see. Right. Fair enough.
It's not, apparently Ventura is an unusual one because it's not the nicest place to be, but the name sounds really cool. So the first thing they mentioned straight away was Stage Manager, and I think this is clever. So a Stage Manager is a new sort of multitasking view. It arranges all your windows to one side, and then the current app stays front and center, and you can stack multiple open windows. And the way it looked, it looked a bit old fashioned to me. But I also think, wouldn't that view be great floating in front of you if you're wearing sort of VR or AR goggles?
You were thinking about that all the time.
I am. Well, I just think that the Apple don't do things without a reason, and I think that's what they're working towards. And by all means, I don't think this will be the finished look. I think because it's in beta and it's the developers get to play with it first. I think that will, much like Safari did, that will iterate and change in its functionality and look, but you're not losing you're not losing the other multitasking features. They're still there to use.
Yeah.
This is an M1 only feature. So we'll come back to why that's annoying me a little bit later on. So it will only work with M1 devices. And it's great that they're using the M1 chips now. Spotlight is getting better in that it's going to be, you'll be able to search live text globally now. I think before Spotlight would work on some things and not others, and you get more information within Spotlight now. So I think they're bringing a bit of machine learning into this as well to sort of kind of guess what you're looking for. And, you know, that's good. You know,
it's good.
These are features we all use all the time.
I think
Spotlight is where you press the space bar and you can search for things on your device.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's dragging down on an iPhone or it's pressing the space bar, command space bar, I think is actually on the Mac.
Yeah.
I like the fact they're finally bringing the Mail app on macOS out of the 20th, sort of 15th century and adding undo send and schedule send and follow up. I mean, Outlook has had that for ages. And most importantly, because it's the worst feature of macOS, they're improving search in Mail because it's useless at the moment. It always has been useless. So that's good. Any comments on that, Alex?
So it's a nice collection of improvements to apps that probably don't need to be bundled in the operating system anyway. Like, you know, it doesn't have to be that this Mail improvement only goes with this version of Ventura. But Apple's used to doing it that way, and it's all fine. I just think if you're using the default Mail in this year, 2022, you're missing out on lots of third-party apps that are much better. Outlook is redesigning at the moment.
I think it's actually quite good, Outlook.
I've just got the preview version of the new one.
I've heard the Windows 11 version is quite good.
Yeah, and do you know what? It's all essentially web based behind the scenes. And it's fine. Like it's so. They're all going through this visiting of things, so I think it's all good. But this does make some bits of Apple's operating system feel a bit pedestrian. A bit old. Anyway, so all of that stuff's great. Stage Manager, I have thoughts about. Because, and my thoughts relate to the fact that this is also coming to the iPad.
Well, I mean, we'll jump ahead,
but we'll come on to that
now.
Oh, okay, yeah. So
we can talk about it now if you want to.
I mean, because that's one of the challenges with iPad is people wanted to make it better for multitasking, and it keeps coming up that we really want the iPad to be our main computer, but we just don't know how to multitask. We just don't know how to do this. We don't know how to do that. And they have, in their credit, actually buckled down and offered improvements and offered this change.
Well, this is a new feature within a year since the last one. That's quite a quick turnaround. A year to go from the split view they've been using and the slide over to this Stage Manager, which will only work on M1 devices. So the new iPad Air that has M1 and the new iPad Pros that have M1, it won't work on my device.
So tell me about that.
A12X iPad.
Yeah, that must hurt because that's unusual for Apple to be that restrictive.
Usually they allow it for the most recent device and the previous generation. Usually that's kind of to allow that transition. I mean, a lot of people have been moaning about how Apple's devices are. I mean, the new iPads are as powerful as the desktop I'm using right now. They're super fast, and they're not really taking advantage of the technology and the speed. And now that they are, people are moaning that the older ones, you can't do that. So I can see why Apple have done this. And I can see it's to do with a lot. People have said, well, the A12X, the Bionic, can do it as well. But these people aren't Apple developers, so how do they know?
So performance-wise, there isn't a performance reason why they can't do it. The challenge is there's twofold. So it's
software encoding.
It's do they want to optimize it for non Apple silicon? And the answer to that is probably no, because they have a native they have a completely native like graphics framework in Apple Silicon now that
it's the Metal. Is it Metal?
Yeah, Metal. That's right. So they're spending all this time and effort into that. They would have to bring that over to Intel, which they don't want to do. So that's not insignificant. So I do understand that. But the other part of it is Apple likes to wrap up new features in new products, and this is what it's doing.
People to buy them, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So they have a lot of users who, particularly iPad users, have had the iPads for 5, 6, 7 years sometimes, and that average length of time that they have an Apple product is a lot longer than other products. So they are trying to find ways to kind of give those that can reasons to upgrade. And this is a reason. It's not the reason, but it's just another reason that does it. I
love my. Sorry,
go on. No, you go.
Well, I love my iPad Pro. I use it all the time. I have a Magic Keyboard that goes with it.
Yeah.
And I know that if I upgrade that, my Magic Keyboard that I spent £350 on, just making sure I was listening, will not fit the new M1 iPads. Do you see?
Yeah. I
have to say I would be much more upset if I used multitasking extensively on my iPad, but I don't really. I use split view a lot for work, but I'm not too fussed if I don't use it, if that makes sense.
I think.
But my feeling is, what next? What's going to be held back next? Do you see?
Yeah, I agree. So this is a bit of a Marmite feature. I think that some people will find it really useful, and others just will be like, well, it's fine, but it's not the end of the world, it's really. So I think, and that's the thing. But Apple probably wanted to make sure it wasn't too annoying, so that you didn't. It's the same thing as I think on the latest iPad Pros, you had the camera that would do center stage.
Center stage.
And again, performance wise, that is perfectly doable on your iPad, because it's not the same change from iPad to M1 as it is from Intel to M1. No, that's the big change.
But it's scalability and smoothness of it, and just
but again, that's something they could have optimized if they chose to.
Wanted to.
But yeah, so I think that's it. I think you're going to get little annoyances that creep in, rather than big ones.
There's some grumbles about Stage Manager and how it doesn't get full screen, whereas with Split View you get. So there's some niggles anyway with it, and I think it will change.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to see how Apple. I mean, again, Apple will not be taking away Split View. I use that already, so there'll be options for the non-M1 users anyway. So I think there's a few moans about it, but I think, like everything, we're just going to have to get used to it. Very quickly going through this Safari, I like the shared tab groups feature. I use tab groups. For instance, when I'm recording a podcast, I can click on a button and it opens up all the pages I need for podcast with one click. My Google Doc, IMDb page for films, Drive opens up. Everything opens up in one go, and then I can click away on another share group and it opens up all my reports tabs I need. It's really, really useful tool. And I think they've had that sort of feature in Chrome for a while.
So Chrome's got it, and Edge has got it.
Yeah.
It's not shared though. Yeah. That's the interesting. I can send.
This is cool. So the shared tab groups is really cool. Yeah. So I could, if we were both Safaris, I could send you my shared podcast tab group, and you have all those open on yours. If you're a Safari user.
If I was
which is quite
Apple
cool.
user,
I can, and I can see that being useful for collaboration in, Apple-based companies that use devices across their networks of workers and so on. Which is good. I like the passkey idea. This is kind of an evolution of safety and security. So passkeys can't be phished, and they are again talking about the FIDO Alliance, which is this sort of cross-platform transition away from passwords into more secure ways of on-device passwords.
Because passwords suck. Password managers are a plaster on top of something. It doesn't solve the actual problem.
No.
The FIDO Alliance have been moving towards this, and everyone has agreed that they're going to do it. It's already in Windows 11, and it's also in Chrome to an extent. But Chrome, you wouldn't notice it as much because it's only for Google, whereas for Microsoft, you can actually. Like I log into eBay using Windows Hello, and whenever it needs to log in, I just sort of point my face and it works, which is really cool. But then you'll need the websites to set that up. And most websites will add this as an add-on rather than a complete replacement for a login.
Sure.
Which I think is actually the right approach, because passwords suck. But the thing is, if you pin them to a particular platform or a particular thing, and then that thing, stops working, or you don't have access to it right then, having no fallback is even worse sometimes. So. Yeah, I think it's great. I'd love to see more innovation in this kind of thing.
Yeah, and I like the fact this is consumer-centric design, which Apple are quite good at, I think, in that respect. Especially they're very big on their security, especially after all the issues with Siri suggestions being recorded in the past. They were big on showing off their security, and it kind of got revealed, didn't it, in all the brouhaha of passwords and. These centres examining people's dialogue and so on. Okay, so they looked at gaming. There's going to be some great upgrades on Metal 3 is the next graphics kind of integration, which gives game loading improvements, fast resource loading APIs, and so on. And they showed off the latest Resident Evil Village game, which looked, frankly, pretty good. That's a game that came out on PS5 recently, and I think, again, Apple are getting more enthusiastic about gaming, and what sort of device would they want to introduce where a lot of loss leader apps would be games, would be some sort of VR device. If your high-end Macs, if you've got better upscaling on existing hardware to a device that needs that, maybe later on they'll be integrating it with the Apple VR AR thing. I was impressed with the 4K on the Mac Studio. I mean, that device is a powerhouse, so it's not surprising.
Yeah.
That's great. And anything that improves graphics without too much jiggling around with graphics cards, but actually just software based, is really cool. I found this the most amazing thing in the keynote at all, which was Desk View. So, as a kind of extension of universal control, which I use a lot with my iPad and my Mac, it's really good, is this sort of whole idea of continuity. So you can extend your hand off to FaceTime now. So you can come have FaceTime on your phone, come and sit down your Mac and pass it onto your Mac. That's really cool. I'd like to see that happen on the Apple TV, so I can actually use the Apple TV for FaceTime. But the most amazing thing here, we mentioned this earlier on in the podcast with reference to the external display webcam, which had a lot of grief with its sort of low light vision, was this idea of being able to clip your iPhone to the top of your device, your MacBook or your M1 Mac, and use that as the webcam wirelessly to your device. Because whatever happens, your iPhone's always going to have a better camera than your desktop.
Yes.
And I particularly was impressed by Desk View. So let's just try and describe what Desk View is. I spent a year and a half, 2 years teaching remotely, off and on, and I bought my wife one of these little sort of clip-on things that you can attach to your bed head and watch your iPad hands-free. I was using that clipped over my desk, facing down, so I could show the children I was teaching geometry and drawing on paper and so on. And it was a bit clunky, but it worked. This is amazing. So your camera is sitting flush with the top of your device, facing you, with the back side of the phone, the camera side facing you, and then it splits your view to show a video of your face to whoever you're zooming or FaceTiming. And then the other view is a top-down view of your desk from the iPhone pointing out towards you at 90 degrees to the desk. And there's obviously some sort of technology from the wide-angle lens. It's peering down on your desk and it's reshaping that image back into a flat panel image and putting that side by side. And it was amazing. And obviously, this is coming later this year, or later on in the year. So it's not out right now. But what an amazing, and it's free as well. Just an update to your software. What are your thoughts on this, Alex?
So really blown away by the feature and the use of the ultra wide lens in the iPhone. I reckon that's probably the best possible way that they could ever make it work. So I reckon that as you move your hand further towards the monitor, you might get artifacts like slightly longer fingers or things like that. So I do think that this was literally the way it was obviously staged, but it looked so good. And so what they've clearly done is kind of given it themselves a bit of space, and then the wide angle lens could do that quite easily. So honestly, it's really novel and good way of adding value to your
devices
experience. And also it's wireless. Like, it seemed seamless, which again, Apple can do that so well. Whereas others, it might be like, you could do that. Just plug a USB-C cable between these two, and then you have this cable trailing everywhere, and it gets in the way, and you might knock it off. And all that stuff.
I mean, if there would be, it would be nice to have an option to be able to connect a Thunderbolt to your phone and have a better, clearer image or a larger image. So as an option, but the wireless is brilliant. I mean, there is an app called Camo that can do this already, but it's slightly different, and it's not Apple, is it?
It does a specific use case, doesn't it? It's a lot more specific.
Looking at the demo, I noticed that the things they were showing were were further away from their computer than I probably would have on my desk, because I guess it fit within that range of the wide angle lens.
They also had defined edges, so it was very clear for for it to identify the edge, and then think about the shape of it, and then compensate a bit. So honestly, I think it'll be great, but I think we're also going to get some very naff versions when you end up looking at someone's cluttered desk with lots of things around it, and it gets a bit more it gets a bit more realistic, rather than that lovely staged clean desk that they have at Apple.
Well, mine's quite like that. I have to keep mine quite Apple-y and minimalist, but
nice.
What is really good is, again, they're going to be releasing that as an API, so it will work with any video app that you use. So it will work with your Zoom, it will work with your Microsoft Teams as well.
Yes,
and I think that's really cool as well, because obviously then it's used across all different apps for different use cases.
Yes, although
if they implement it.
I would say that it probably requires a 100% native app. So although that sounds
not a web app,
although it sounds obvious, some things aren't actually they're web based instead, like Slack, for example. And Teams is also going down that route. So I hope that it'll be well supported, but we'll have to see. But I think it's an awesome feature, because for the occasions when I need that, it's really like, how do I do that? And you do exactly like you said. You get the little extended thing, and you try and get another webcam, and I've got webcams coming out of my ears in this place at the moment, but it, from the lockdown. But it was what you needed at the time, because you needed to show exactly what was in front of you and still present. So I think it's amazing that we've managed to do that within that. There'll be the clips will probably cost a fair bit,
20-30 quid.
Yeah,
for a bit of plastic. I can see you've got your 3D printer behind you. You could just print one off, couldn't you? So let's move on to iPad OS 16. And I'll just, because I can see the time is getting along here, I'm going to kind of go through some of the highlight features. And stop me when you have any kind of Android comments on this. But obviously, I have no idea why this is not being here sooner. The weather app's coming to iPad, really good. I think at some point within this year, Dark Sky will be shutting down, because obviously Apple owns Dark Sky. Dark Sky is my favourite service, and as long as they bring in the Dark Sky alert still within the weather app, that's fine.
Sad when that went to Apple, because it was just
it is sad, because it will come off the Android devices, won't it?
It's already off them. You can't get them.
I still use Dark Sky because I bought the app and the subscription to it. Was it a subscription? It might have been a one-off payment, actually. I could be wrong, but I love the fact, and it's so accurate. I'm out doing sport, and I'll get a little 2-minute warning for rain. We'll put the wickets away, get into the pavilion, and the rain falls. And it's that accurate, and it's that clever. So that's good for Apple users, not so good for Android and everyone else. Sorry about that. So that'll be built into WeatherKit. I think it's going to be linked into my messages as well. You can sort of integrate with your weather into the messages, which is always good. I really like Freeform. That would have been great for remote teaching, this kind of whiteboard sharing app. It's great. it did feel like it was kind of that's a bit fun, but what's the point? But I can see, again, corporations using that collaboratively. I mean, there's tools. I mean, Microsoft have their own whiteboard app you can use collaboratively.
Yeah.
I've used that at school before.
I think
it's a bit shonky in the iPad, but it's pretty good on Microsoft devices.
Yeah, there are already many other apps that do that job.
Yeah.
Some of them are better than others. I did feel like that in particular was Apple just creating its own because they probably don't allow any other any other software within their bubble. But
you can get the Microsoft Whiteboard app, which integrates with OneNote on the iPad.
Oh no, I get that, but I just mean that I don't think Apple lets you install that within its own campus. I feel that must be a corporate rule that they go, whiteboard's all right. No, do not say that word. Go and build one. Off you go. But honestly, like they're good at doing this job. They do good UI. If they just looked outside of their walled garden, I think we'd all be using Apple stuff more. But for those that have it, it's going to be nice.
They talked about gaming again on the iPad. I think they're improving their API for background downloading to improve the whole kind of experience of gaming. There were updates to Game Center. And share play, you can now share play in multiplayer games, which is pretty cool. But I was bemused that they didn't kind of take that one step further and maybe do like game streaming on device without any other kit. I think that would be. It just seems like a no-brainer. Imagine if you could just, again, with the technology they use with the cameras and so on, just do your own streaming with your. If you could use your iPad to play video games, stream them with your image within, like a sort of like we have on Twitch and so on. That might come later on with other devices, but I just think they missed a trick there. I enjoyed the big update to Files. Files is a bit clunky. It's not great. Being able to have customizable toolbars and document menus sounds so kind of 1990s, but it does feel like the iPad is becoming more and more desktop-likey. As these improvements improve, these iterations of the menus and the tools improve. I
think my main worry about that is it's great to have consistency between platforms, but my worry is that a lot of some of this stuff is coming over to the Mac operating system as well. And the challenge is there's going to be a point where the Mac operating system starts becoming less appealing for power users because of some of it gets dumbed down, as it were, to kind of align these things. But for the iPad, this is great news. So for the iPad, this is brilliant. You're getting a lot more flexibility. You're getting a lot more focus. Really, iPad was really unloved for quite a period of time. It just happened to have some really good app developers like focusing on it, and then Apple kind of went, oh wait a minute, that's an untapped area, we should use that. But if it wasn't for that, I think a lot more people would be on Android tablets than they are now because of the situation. But now Apple have really doubled down and made it really compelling. iPad is operating system's lovely. It's very good.
It's very nice. I have different use cases for my iPad and my desktop. I tend to do a lot of photo editing on my iPad now with the pencil and the touchscreen. Another M1 gripe. So Stage Manager will only work on the M1 iPads, as will display res settings. You can actually adjust the resolution of certain aspects of your screen. And I would imagine, I haven't fact checked this, but I'm pretty sure that external display support will be M1 only, just the way it multitasks.
Yes.
It's no coincidence that they released the external display before this update.
No.
I think it's really good that they've done this, and the fact that you can use Stage Manager with both devices, that's really cool. They have said that all the operating systems, all OSs, will be available in September-ish. Well, they said fall.
That's when they normally do it. Normally they drop it in September, and they've already got a developer beta out, so it's not like they're over-promising. I think realistically most of the features are almost complete now. So
I think just to go back, I think Desk View will only work on the 12 Pro and the 13 Pro phones. You might want to fact check that for me.
Oh, okay.
I think it's a feature of the camera setup on those devices and the processors.
Yeah, it'll be relying on the ultra wide and that integration.
You can go into their sort of WWDC summary, and there's a lot of appendicized comments where which ones they're compatible with. I was checking those. For instance, display resolution settings are M1 only as well. But actually, this was just to round off here, because this is the last bit of information that was released. This is, I thought, a really encouraging update. I think they've really thought about the user in these updates. I think there's a lot of people's wish lists have now been ticked off in terms of usability. I found it interesting that they didn't mention the Mac Pro, the desktop Mac Pro, which they referred to in their last keynotes.
I think
no mention
that will be in
HomePod
September
or tvOS. Yeah. I mean, the September one's much more hardware based, isn't it, and more consumer based. But I think perhaps because it was a long one, it was just under 2 hours. This one as well. I think they're saving perhaps for September, October. I was sad to see nothing for tvOS. I feel like that's kind of an underdeveloped system, but the fact you can get downloadable apps on different devices for tvOS now, and not even need a device itself, I don't know what's going to happen to the Apple TV. There was no mention of any changes to the HomePod Mini. I don't believe there's actually any changes in HomePod OS 16 in any just bug fixes and stabilization. There's no extra features. What are your kind of overall thoughts about the presentation, Alex, just to round off and finish off?
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, honestly, there's a lot of quality of life updates and improvements. And it really feels like they're quite thoughtful improvements as well. So, genuinely, these are all good feature improvements. So you can't fault them really for that. I think the continuity view with the phone on that was the one that took a lot of us by surprise, because we weren't expecting
that. Was the wow feature, wasn't it?
Kind of, and also I think it kind of it just closed a book on, like, we had a problem, we've solved that problem. No more conversation about that, which was great. And I think the fact that they brought M2 Max out was great. One of the things, I mean, Apple have done such a good job of making ARM silicon work really well and really efficiently, and now they're getting to the point where they now can scale it up, put more cores in, give it more power. I think the only challenge that they're going to have is they're going to start hitting similar issues that Intel and Nvidia and the like hit, which is, if you put too much power into that space, you're going to need to cool it, and there is a limit to that, because the law of physics doesn't allow thermodynamics.
Moore's law.
Well, Moore's law is about processing power, but the law of thermodynamics.
They seem to have disproved, don't they, almost?
But law of thermodynamics is, the more power you cram into a smaller space, the more heat is going to generate. So there is going to be a point, like. They are going to hit a limit there, but if they roll out a M2 Pro and M2 Max, for example, they are the Ultra, already wiping the floor with. That's it. They're wiping the floor with a lot of the other competitors, because they can wrap it into such a small space. On the plus side, Intel's now innovating for the first time in ages on that.
Well, competition's good, isn't it?
So that's really positive.
To do that.
And AMD's doing a great job in terms of sheer horsepower. They're doing really good stuff there. So it's a really interesting time to have all of this stuff. It's great.
It's just the frustration of not being able to get these things because of the way the pandemic has mucked up the supply chain, and it's helped Apple a bit because they're more in-house than they used to be, even if they are still outsourcing to certain countries for certain things.
I think they've integrated, and their close integration has been going for a long time. And I think it has made enabled them to weather the storm better than other manufacturers have. Because
I think they're going to struggle with the new iPhone's going to struggle, I think, in terms of supply, though.
Of course.
It's going to be the first iPhone to deal with the hangover of the pandemic properly, I think.
Yes.
I think they're going to have issues meeting demand.
The thing is, Apple's had the luxury of being the biggest manufacturer for quite a long time. But eventually it comes up, comes round again, and there is a limit to, how much you can drive these efficiencies when you have.
Well, Tim Cook was their logistics guy, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Before he became CEO, so there's a lot of experience there already.
But they've done that, and they've got to a point there where they're super efficient. So the challenge with that is, when there are cities in China that have been closed down for a number of, almost a month or 6 to 8 weeks, it has to come and come round to Apple eventually. No matter how efficient you are, no matter how good, how you've prepared for this stuff, you're going to have to come back to that at some point. So for them, it's they've delayed that problem. And when that problem comes, it's probably going to be minor. It'll be a few months, whereas everyone else has been, they've said 6 to 8 months, and they'll unveil products, but they actually can't get hold of them in the real world. And so Apple have been really lucky because they've shown that end-to-end benefit that they have. But yeah, no, I think it'll probably coming holiday rather than coming. First week of September, and maybe they'll find a way of doing that in a way that isn't going to frustrate people. I don't know.
Well, they'll do some clever things with how they sell them in stores and how they
have a wait list or something.
Yeah. I mean, we decided to talk about this today. I know we mostly talk about games and comics and films, but obviously the devices that we look at our games, comics and films on are also very important to us, and that's why I wanted to talk about this. I would say that we should round up here and do some housekeeping. You can find myself and Alex on Twitter. I'm at John P. R. Evans and Alex is
at Alex Hansford.
You can also go to our Play Pause Turn Twitter account, which is at Play Pause Turn. And you can find us also on our webpage, which lets you stream the audio live if you haven't got a podcast catcher, which is playpauseturn.show. And we will be resuming normal service for our next podcast, hopefully. Yes. But it's been a very interesting chat. Thank you, Alex. It's always nice to see the non-Apple point of view as well, because I am stuck with my head in this silicon sand quite often. I did stop saying, we've already got that. But I do think it's been really good for seeing how Apple is doing things, and genuinely they are doing them better than everywhere else. So that's always a good thing. Slowly but surely, hey? Well, this has been Play Pause Turn, and thank you for listening.